Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good boys in Canada. You know we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave and the beautiful. March the 21st, 2019. Big C will be calling in shortly. I want to thank for Keller Williams and Associates, Northern California, Benelli Acosta, doing great jobs helping people get the training for Ignite. What a great series they've had in Northern California, Keller Williams. I also love the fact that this is a great time of year. Spring, we have baseball getting ready with spring training. And of course, there's always talk about basketball and March Madness and of course the NBA. But I'm really looking forward to this March Madness tournament that started today. And this is a lot going on in the sports universe that we love in this time of year, especially in California. If you have allergies, it's not the most enjoyable time of year because everybody's affected by it. People are sneezing, Big C. People are snotting. I don't like to shake hands. I'd rather give you a fist pump. And there's a reason. Some people think athletes are trying to be cool because when they shake your hand, they'd rather give you a fist pump. There's a reason for that. Sometimes, like in the old days, people walk around with a handkerchief. And with that handkerchief, they didn't always do, what was hygiene. They didn't practice the hygiene. They didn't have those hand sanitizers. They oftentimes would go around and blow their hands on a handkerchief, Big C, in springtime. And then you go meet that person, and you saw them blowing their nose on a handkerchief. Unlike a Kleenex, they throw the Kleenex away. That handkerchief, they would fold it up and put it right back in their pocket. So, Big C, I know we got you calling in. I was just saying how I don't like shaking hands here in California. Springtime, everything's blooming. That means that people have runny nose. So when you see somebody take a handkerchief, blow their nose, put it right back in their pocket, then they want to shake your hand. Big C, how do you approach those people? Your thoughts?
Well, I always wave, Charlton. I remember growing up, and my great-grandfather always did that with his handkerchief. He'd blow his nose and put it back in his pocket and stuff. But as kids back in those days, we didn't know anything about germs, Charlton.
No.
No one washed their hands every time they picked up something or whatever. No one had hand sanitizer that they walked around with. But you know something, Charlton? Ironically, people were healthier back then.
Really?
There was all these germ killers that they have now in society. I mean, having some germs is healthy to a degree. Your body sets up its own immune system. It does.
Yeah.
I think you think about how many illnesses that exist today, Charlton, versus what existed 60, 70 years ago in America. I mean, now, Charlton, everybody gets something from something. I mean, there's flu epidemics now, Charlton, that they have no cure for.
Yeah.
We didn't have those things when I was a kid. You drank some warm lemon tea with some honey in it and a shot of brandy they'd give you, You went to sleep and you sweated it out. You can't tell that on your parents today, Charlton, because they get hit with child abuse. But we were healthy back in those days. And, it's amazing how that every time you turn around, Charlton, they have some new medication out for you to take.
Yeah.
So, what they're doing is building immunity on top of immunity, but you're not, fighting off the germs. It's just, it's the next stage of something that comes along.
Yeah, I think that's very incredible. We do have how a lot of times everything's so treated. And I have heard what you said before. I've heard that, and this is not anti-hand sanitizer companies. I know you got to make your money too selling things. But if your body doesn't have the chance to build up an immune system, then oftentimes it will get sick. And I even heard some doctors say that in order to build up a resistance to a germ, they actually insert that germ inside you. That make any sense, Big C?
Well, Charlton, they have to. Your body has to get used to something. You think about when they have snake bite remedies, Charlton, they make it from the snake's own venom.
Yeah.
That's how they get your body to fight against it. So, I mean, our bodies are built to be able to fight off germs and bacteria, Charlton. But with so much medication being given these days, Charlton, and especially with the, what is it? I'm trying to think of the name of the drugs and stuff that they give, Charlton, for colds and things and everything.
Antihistamines, antibiotics, etc.
Antibiotics, Charlton.
Yeah.
With the influx of antibiotics and so many different types of them, Charlton, is that, you kill the body's immune system with all these different antibiotics.
Yeah.
And so you get to a point where you can't fight things off. You know, we've just become too much of a medicated society. But, you know, that's what Big Pharma is all about, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's the reason why CDBs have not been in the mainstream, Charlton, because pharmaceutical companies say, hey, you're going to kill our industry just like we've killed off the immune system.
Yeah. I think it was over 100 years ago that Oxycontin and also marijuana was, you know, really produced simultaneously, and one the pharmacies could control when it's manufactured through a lab. The other, the average person can grow out of the Mother Earth, out of the ground, and they fought one and pursued the other. Now they're trying to make both of them legal. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern Californian Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a host of Cadillac Cars. So I think about something too, just touching on that subject that we mentioned, because it's springtime, and you can't tell if someone has allergies or if someone has a cold, Big C. Well, a cold is a virus, and allergies, when flowers start blooming, the pollen's in the air, and sometimes you can't tell the difference. But I just thought, and I want to get your thought one more time, if you're saying that a handkerchief, which is what a lot of, you know, elder people used, or grandparents, they would use that handkerchief. And a lot of them lived to be late in life, and they were not full of medications. Nowadays, by the time somebody hits 50, those doctors are pumping any kind of, you know, substance into their bloodstream, seeing that that's the cure as opposed to natural remedies. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think they constantly built up their own immune system, you know, just by reusing something over and over, is that the body became used to it, Charlton.
Yeah.
And it made it easy to fight it off if something else came in and tried to attack their own natural bacteria, Charlton. But that's what we have. Our bodies have its own bacteria system to fight off foreign bacteria. I mean, you think about when they give people heart transplant, Charlton, kidney transplant, lung transplant.
Yeah.
They have to take medication, Charlton, to keep the body from resisting that foreign body that's been put inside of theirs.
Wow.
That's what our systems are built up on, Charlton. So, I mean, yes, those drugs are good in many ways when they, you know, help aid patients who've had organ transplants, Charlton.
Yeah.
But just the every common day symptoms that we get for anything, Charlton, to get antibiotics because you got a runny nose, because you got a cold, because you got a fever, Charlton. The body has to learn how to adjust to that fever and fight against it internally, Charlton.
Wow.
The body has to fight against the runny nose. I had many runny noses as a kid. I think everybody who's had a child, Charlton, has dealt with runny noses. You know, I mean, your sleeve had that long sleeve on it many times, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, you know, but you lived through it. You know, you got through it. You know, they tell you not to go outside when it was cold once you got sick, you know, and if you did have to go out to go to school or whatever, dress warmly, Charlton, but you had to cover your body. And they let the body fight itself off, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with all of what we do, and it's all about economics, Charlton, you know, call yourself helping somebody who's sick, you help keep them sick also in turn.
Yeah, and so that's a word to the wise, where I remember in Walnut Creek, this was back in the day, I was at a park, and this lady had maybe a 1 or 2 year old child, and the child sneezed, like, "Hachoo!" You know, the child sneezed, and the kid was on the swing, and the mother jumped up, "Honey, are you okay? Honey, are you okay?" I thought, whoa, that's called helicopter parent. I bet that kid is always sick, Big C, because she had hand sanitizers, napkins, and everything. That kid, I thought that kid had a milkshake. It was his own snot that he was drinking, Big C. That makes any sense, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, when we look at these young parents today, I mean, a lot of them don't have a chance to interact with grandmothers and great-grandmothers, Charlton.
Yep.
To let them know how they should, you know, potentially rear their children. Everybody's saying, you know, I'm going to do this my way. I'm not going to look at the old-time methods. Well, you know, those people didn't get old, Charlton, by being a fool.
I love when you say that.
They understood things, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's why you have great-grandparents that are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because they knew how to take care of their body, and they knew how to take care of the people around them.
Yeah.
Now we're all wanting to run to a doctor. As you said, the minute the kid sneezes, you want to be at the doctor's office. You know, because something's wrong with my child. You know, he's sneezing.
He's sneezing in springtime.
It's like, wow, okay, he has a cough. What should I do? Well, give him plenty of fluids. You know, he'll be okay.
Yeah.
You know, so they're not willing to listen to the people, Charlton, that have gotten long in life.
Yeah.
To give a basic remedy to help a child grow older, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you look at athletics, and I mean, when I first started playing athletics, Charlton, we didn't have all the fangled things that they have now with all the various knee braces, elbow braces, and the updated equipment that they have, Charlton. We didn't have the medical technology that they have now, Charlton, to keep an athlete healthy and to prolong careers.
Yep.
But also, Charlton, we didn't have the excessive drugs that they use now with athletes to get them hooked.
Yeah.
And then when their playing days are over, Charlton, and people wonder why athletes end up in such destitute on many occasions, Charlton, is because of the narcotic use.
Yeah.
A lot of them fall into that narcotic use, and they can't get it from the pharmacists there with the teams, the doctors, and the trainers, so they have to find illicit drugs on the street, Charlton.
Wow.
And that has led so many athletes into that because you pump them full of so much medication, Charlton.
Yeah.
They become addicted. They're playing addicted. They're walking dope heads all the time. They're physically functional addicts, what athletes are in many cases, Charlton.
Yep.
And I know it was there in the 70s and 80s. Functional addicts is what athletes were because you could get anything if you could say that, if you could even get close to the enunciation of the name of the drug, Charlton.
Yeah.
You could get it. And some drugs you didn't want, you got anyway.
You know, that's...
So, these were the functional addicts that athletes were.
Yeah.
And then it destroyed so many people's lives, Charlton, after the game. You know, you think about a quarterback out of Southern California out there where you are.
Yeah.
Todd Marinovich, who was known as the Robo quarterback.
Robo quarterback.
Now, this is the same type of kid, Charlton, in high school. Now, think about the parallels. He got the same type of hype that LeBron James got when he was in high school. That he was the chosen one, that he was the next one. Look at the parallel of careers, Charlton. Marinovich went off and became a drug addict. Spent many days locked up in incarceration. Look at LeBron, who was the chosen one, who was an African-American, Charlton. He knew how to steer his life correct. And it's amazing how mainstream media, Charlton, never draws those parallels of the failed white athlete who became a drug addict, incarcerated, and he was named the chosen one. He was going to be the next great quarterback, you know, coming out of Southern California. He was drafted by the Raiders in the first round. And ironically, Charlton, he started 8 games in his pro career through only 9 interceptions and 6 touchdowns. And I say it in that capacity because that's what it was. He had more interceptions than touchdowns. And his career ended very quickly. But, you know, they'll always let you know of an African-American quarterback that fails. You think about, as the media beat up on Jamarcus Russell, who was drafted by that same franchise, said that he was the biggest quarterback bust ever. No, Todd Marinovich was even a bigger bust, you know, than Jamarcus Russell. At least Russell was able to make it through a season. You know, Todd Marinovich wasn't, and he ended up in jail. We haven't heard that about Jamarcus Russell. He got the millions and went off into the sunset. You know, but I just drew that comparison between him and LeBron James because they had the Sports Illustrated hype, Charlton. They were both cover boys when they were in high school. You think about that. He was a cover boy in high school, but the mainstream media won't let you know of the failures of Todd Marinovich, but they still want to beat up on LeBron James.
That's very true. Todd Marinovich came out of Capistrano Valley High School, Southern California, and LeBron James came out of St. Akron, St. Vincent's, St. Mary's out of Ohio. And, you know, the ironic thing is, and I want to touch on this one more time because if you're an athlete, you will be introduced to something. Like the lady with the 1-year-old that sneezed and she said, "Honey, are you okay? Are you okay?" The kid couldn't talk, but there was just snot running out of his nose. I'll still remember that. You would think the kid had fallen off the swing, but no, the kid sneezed, Big C, and she got up and, "Honey, are you okay?" And so the point is, we may say what we should or should not take. You know, most athletes deal with some pain. And I remember you telling me back in the day, they had this spray called Hurt No More. I don't know if that's what it really was called. But you got to play with some pain. I've heard of guys talking about having, you know, broken bones and got to play through it anyway. Because if you don't, there's like about 5 guys that want to take your job. They don't care if you got a broken bone.
You think about Jack Reynolds, Charlton, defensive end for the Los Angeles Rams. Played on a broken ankle, Charlton, in an NFC Championship game versus the Dallas Cowboys. Back in the 70s. And this man had a cast on his foot, you know, flexible cast. And played a championship game playing defensive end. having to go up against Rayfield Wright, a huge offensive tackle every down, Charlton.
Yeah.
And so you think about this, if you've got a dislocated finger and a broken finger, and you're having to play with it. This man had a broken ankle, and he played in an NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And I know he did that all on just gut.
It was tough. He machoed up. He machoed up.
Yeah, he was just hyped up, to be in the game. He was happy to play, and a broken leg wasn't going to keep him out of it, Charlton.
Right. So, with that knowledge, because I've forgotten about that, the man played with
actually it was Jim Youngblood, not Jack Youngblood. Jim Youngblood.
But he played with a broken
bone. Played at the University of Florida.
Out of Florida, and played for the Rams. Now, I want to just have you, the movie that I really think told a lot about sports was the North Dallas 40. I want you, without naming any names, we don't want to cause any problems, but I want you to go back into a locker room when you played pro ball, and you saw the guys that were taped up, they were medicated, they were given, things to make them not feel the pain, even though something was broken anyway. Tell me about the conversations that a coach will have with a player to say, how does that coach who knows that player must take that needle, they got to take something, Big C. How does that conversation happen? Do they pretend they don't know about it? Your thoughts?
But Charlton, that conversation even took place with me. We got to have you for this game. We need you. If we don't have you tonight, we don't win.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time that I played a game, Charlton, with broken ribs.
Wow.
I got shot up pre-game, popped in 4 Demerol tablets to go along with that, Charlton.
Yeah.
I got shot up at halftime because it had worn off.
Yeah.
Took 4 more Demerol tablets, Charlton, to cope with the pain.
Yeah.
At the end of the game, they didn't shoot me up again, but I took 4 more Demerol tablets, Charlton.
Yeah.
Along with a couple of alcoholic beverages in the locker room that they always gave us, because it's the most replenishing drink that you can have is in cornflakes in a can or in a bottle, as we call it.
Yep.
But, I had teammates also, Charlton, that, the discussion was had with, and it's not so much that the coach comes in there all the time. It's like, you're having a conversation with the trainer and the team doctors.
Yeah.
They know of your situation all week long, the coach does. There was a time that I had knee surgery. We had to fly across the country, Charlton, 8 days after having the knee surgery.
Yeah.
My leg had blew up, Charlton, from, being in the plane.
Yeah.
We get to that city, Charlton. We go to the hospital, and they put me in the pressurized cast to get the swelling back out of the leg, Charlton. I spend several hours in it, get it back down to normal size, and you go out and you take whatever you got to take to play in the game, Charlton. I've had many teammates that have taken things, during the game. I mean, you break a hand in a game, Charlton, they'll give you an injection.
Yeah.
You break a finger, they'll give you an injection in that finger. They'll tape it up, This happens. This was the commonality of professional sports.
Yep.
You can play injured, Charlton, but you can't play hurt. Okay?
Yeah.
That was the difference.
Well,
and so they drew that line. But even in the older times, Charlton, before the money got to where it is now, it was a challenge of do you really want to keep a job?
Yep.
Because normally there were guys on the practice roster, and there's always been a practice roster in pro ball, Charlton.
Yeah.
Is that players are around practicing. They don't dress for the game. They're standing along the sidelines. You see all these guys in the team's sweatsuits or whatever standing on the sidelines. These have always been the practice roster players, Charlton.
Yeah.
And so one of those guys is sitting there looking to play, hoping you get hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, you actually have guys that are getting paid by the team, Charlton, hoping that starters get hurt.
Yep.
So, and it's not a facetious thing. They just want an opportunity to play.
They want their dream.
And generally, you're not going to get an opportunity to play, Charlton, if that starter stays healthy.
Let me get.
And so they'll do all they can to stay on the field.
Let me ask you a question, and I know, and again, without mentioning any names or teams, have you ever known of a pro football player that lost his job because he would not take the needle, not because he wasn't good enough? That make any sense?
Oh, yeah, Charlton. I've seen guys that refuse to go out and compete because they were semi-injured. And they end up, they'll put them on reserve. As soon as they say that they're ready, that they can play, they'll cut them.
Wow.
Because they were not willing to go that extra mile, Charlton. And that's always been in the game. It may have changed now over the last decade and a half, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because of where the money is and the way the contract structures are. But, if you were a young guy, Charlton, and you hadn't got to that point, you get to a certain point of the season that your money's guaranteed in pro football.
Yeah.
But prior to that, it's not guaranteed. So they would release players all the time, Charlton. Player come up say, well, I'm hurt. And I'm not going to be able to practice. Not going to be able to play. You've made that decision on your own.
Right.
Not without the team making that decision, Charlton. And you find yourself getting released.
Yeah.
Because you haven't reached that threshold during the season where your contract is guaranteed.
Yeah.
I don't know what the league is doing right now as far as the guaranteeing from day one, and I still don't think the contracts are guaranteed from day one, Charlton, because they're still cutting players as the season goes along.
Yeah.
But that's always been one of the tangibles out there, for players, Charlton.
Yeah.
If they're not performing, and matter of fact, I know it still hasn't changed because players getting released all the time.
All the time.
Players not performing up to what they expect. Players got a nagging injury.
Yep.
It's that old adage is you can't make the team in the tub.
Yeah.
And it's still today, Charlton. If you spend too much time in the training room, you can't practice. They'll find somebody who is willing to not be in the training room and practice and play, Charlton.
Yep.
So I've seen the pressure done to players. I've seen players release. 1 minute they're there, 1 minute they're not. All of a sudden they say, well, I'm hurt and I can't practice.
Yeah.
Miss 2 days of practice, all of a sudden he's not even, his locker room, his locker is empty in the locker room. This has happened. I've seen many cases of this.
Yeah. Well, when you made that story yesterday about the guaranteed money, I think the player for the Chicago White Sox, Jimenez, and about 40 plus.
Elrod Jimenez.
About 40 plus $1 million.
$46 million for 4 years. And has not spent 1 day in Major League Baseball, Charlton.
And guaranteed, I believe you said is guaranteed. Most of that money
guaranteed
is guaranteed.
Money.
So when Kyler Murray, and I was watching some guys performing again. There's a quarterback out of Missouri. They also had Hoskins out of Ohio State.
Drew Lock.
Yeah, Lock out of Missouri. And they're saying, he's a natural leader. I was waiting for them to call him a freak because that's how they say about Zion Williamson. He's a freak. But they don't call Locke a freak. They call him a natural leader. You see the difference how they treat black men and white men? I'm not being flippant. I heard it with my own 2 ears.
Well, Charlton, if you're a natural leader, then you ought to be able to will your teammates to win if you're a leader.
Yeah.
Now, the last time I checked, Drew Lock spent 4 years at Missouri and never won more than 8 games in one season.
Nope.
Never won more than 8 games in one season as a 4-year starter in Missouri.
Yeah.
So if you're a natural leader, how can you not win at least, 8 games twice in your college career, Charlton? You played 13 games a season now.
Yeah.
His best season, they won 8 games, Charlton. The rest of them, they won 6 and 7. One season, 5.
Yeah.
So, he had a progression. I guess that was leadership when you go from 5, 6 to 7 to 8. I guess that's
it's progress.
Progression.
It's progress, Big C.
It's progress.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't get you into anything, it's progress.
Yeah.
So to say that the guy is a natural leader, this is always the terminology that's used about white quarterbacks coming out of college, Charlton, is that he's headsy. He has that ability to lead men. No, he's leading boys in college, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's what he's leading.
Yeah.
There's no grown men out there. They're not getting a paycheck with their name on it. At least they might be getting cash, but they're not getting a paycheck with their name on it, Charlton.
I got to ask you a question.
So he has not led men yet.
Did Missouri win the SEC, Big C?
I don't even know if they won 3 games in the SEC, Charlton.
Okay, I just because sometimes I had someone say, man, when they say freak is a compliment, I said, go home and call your wife a freak and see if it's a compliment. See if she thinks it's a compliment.
Wait a minute. The SEC championship game, Charlton, last year had, Alabama and Georgia, I believe it was?
Yeah, Alabama and Georgia.
Okay, and the year before that, they had Georgia and Auburn or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and the year before that, they had Alabama playing somebody, but I don't think it was Missouri.
No. It may have been Florida.
In the 4 years, my memory's not always that great, but I don't recall Missouri ever being in the SEC championship game.
So why would they call him a natural leader when he couldn't even lead college teams to beat other college teams? How's he going to now? Not everybody from a great college team gets drafted to the league, into the NFL. So if he's such a great leader, or a natural leader, as they say, and he can't even compete to beat college kids. I mean, wish everyone well, but I listen to how people use words.
Not only that, Charlton, in 4 years at Missouri, was he ever first-team SEC at quarterback?
No.
On all SEC teams?
No.
So I guess his leadership traits are well, I mean, that's your friends Mel Kiper, Todd McShay.
Yeah.
We know how they've been on quarterbacks lately, Charlton, the guys that they've chosen.
Yeah. Yeah, they like that lady in Walnut Creek when the 1-year-old baby sneezes. She said, "Honey, are you okay?" I think the Mache and Kuiper, they go around to any white athlete and they say,
well, maybe Mike Mayock could draft him with the Raiders.
With the Raiders,
I mean, he was the biggest genius of all the draft experts.
Yeah.
You think about it, that he had more praise than what your buddies Mel Kiper and McShay had, Charlie.
Yeah.
Because he got a GM position.
Yeah.
So evidently he's going to draft Drew Lock first round for the Raiders.
Yeah, I just think that's crazy. And speaking of drafting that, I look at Vontaze Burfict, going on to join up with the Oakland Raiders. He really does personify what a Raider was when they had Matuzak, when they had Harper, they had the guys that would take your head off, Jack Tatum, those kind of guys. But now that cost you 15 yards, Big C. That's not an asset anymore. So if he's not good enough for Cincinnati because he had almost $700,000 in penalties, well, how does he help the Raiders? He's not Khalil Mack. Why do they? I thought Gruden was getting rid of guys like Mack to get draft picks. Why does he want to bring in a guy who's cost his team 15 yards on almost every week, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is probably only going to be a 12-game contract because he'll get suspended for at least 4.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So he's only on the hook for 12 games this year.
Yeah.
But the happiest guy with this signing, Charlton, of everybody was Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
If you think about the past couple of seasons, Vontaze Burfict and Antonio Brown, he don't have to run around looking at somebody trying to kill him on the field.
Yeah.
Because he knows that guy's on the sideline while he's out on the field now. He's a teammate.
Yeah.
Unless he's going after him in 7-on-7 in practice, okay?
Yes.
But I don't think he'll run any underneath routes when Vontaze is on the field because he might have a flashback.
Well, but
when I think about this type of move for the Raiders, Charlton, and you're trying to find somebody to be a leader on their defense. I mean, you can't say that they had a leader on defense, Charlton.
No.
This is a team, Charlton. You think about quarterback sacks. Khalil Mack had 2 more sacks than the Oakland Raiders defense did last year, Charlton.
Yeah.
So you have to find somebody who's willing to play. I mean, this is one of those guys when you think about Vontaze Burfict.
Yeah.
This is one of those type of linebackers that offensive linemen hate, even fullbacks hate, because this is a guy that'll make you an inch or 2 shorter.
Yeah.
Because he'll run up in the hole and shorten your neck.
Yeah.
He will.
Yeah.
And so maybe he can bring something back to the Raiders, Charlton, that they once had when they had the menaces that they had on defense. You talked about the great linebackers they had, Willie Hall, Phil Villapiano, Ted Hendricks, Charlton, Monty Johnson, great linebackers they had. Secondary, George Atkins and Jack Tatum, Skip Thomas.
Yeah.
What was Russell's name out there? 37, Lester Hayes.
Lester Hayes, sticky man, the stick man.
They had some menacing people on defense, Charlton.
Yeah.
That didn't mind getting a little bit nasty, and they were praised about that. And so if Gruden wants to bring back, and he said he wanted to take football back, to the 90s.
Yeah.
Vontaze Burfict will take him there.
Yeah, he will, especially if it costing them 15 yards when they can't afford to have it go against their defense. Big C, I'm happy when everybody gets a chance. Black History Facts, I just want to bring it up. On this day, 1965, the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he led thousands of people on a 54-mile march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. He was trying to establish voting rights for Black Americans. I just want people to think about that for a moment. We just heard Zion Williamson, who meets the profile of men that Dr. King led marches 54 miles so they could vote. And now that we can vote, why does white America still refer to black men as freaks? I just don't understand that. When we all sing "We Shall Overcome," that we believe in equality for everybody, but a major media outlet, they refer to a black man in college, okay, as a freak. If they can take people that are looking for higher education at a great institution like Duke, and you still are called a freak, what is the kid in the inner city that's not in a college situation? What does he have? How can he succeed if guys doing the right thing are being labeled as that with impunity? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the thing about it is that you're labeling black people as subhumans, technically.
Yeah.
And so here it is, we've never heard of a white athlete being labeled a freak, Charlton. We never have.
Nope.
And so I wonder why the connotation, because there's two black athletes in America, Charlton, that are labeled that, Giannis and Zion.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of their names that people can't pronounce them.
Wow.
So they say that other.
Yeah.
But you know, when you look at it, why can't you just say he's a superior athlete?
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal athlete.
Yep.
I mean, if he was a virtuoso on a piano playing at Carnegie Hall, would they call him a freak?
Nope.
They call him a musical genius.
Yep.
When you take a chess, professional,
Yeah.
Expert, they don't call him a freak.
No, they
They
don't.
call him a savant, Charlton.
Yep.
So when you look at this, and only black athletes are tabbed with that logo,
Yeah.
and it's brought upon them by white society, Charlton, is that they can't identify the man. They don't want to talk about his greatness, Charlton.
Right.
So they want to put a moniker on him.
Yep.
To make him subhuman.
Well, I think Big C Sports is the only sports show in the universe that will draw that contrast, because it has to stop. And I don't want to tolerate it on our podcast. I know that everybody has their opinion. Anyone can make mistakes, but when you make a mistake, I was taught as a young boy, you apologize. I want to look at a little bit of some NBA. James Harden against the Atlanta Hawks. He became the only NBA player in history to score at least 30 points against all 29 opposing NBA teams. Now, he's the only player to do that. But they've never labeled him as a freak. It may be because he's a grown man, but they call Giannis the Greek freak. But I still think if black men, I was told by my grandparents, people treat you the way you allow them to treat you. If it's not acceptable, tell them it's not acceptable. I would hope that Coach Krzyzewski would put out a call and say, wait a minute, this is a young man who is impressionable, who's doing everything the right way. At least if you can't call him by his name, don't call him anything. But the freak has to go, Big C. Your thoughts?
But do they call Coach Krzyzewski the freak coach?
No.
They don't do that. Think
Nope.
about it. If you're going to call a player that, then you got to call the coach that.
Yep.
He needs to be called the freak coach.
Yeah.
They're not going to call Krzyzewski the freak coach. Freaks Coach Krzyzewski. They're
No.
not going to do that, Jonathan.
No.
They're not going to do that for any coach, but they'll label the athlete.
Yep.
You know, we call Steve Kerr the coach of the Warriors, the coach of Steph Curry, the coaches, Kevin Durant.
Yep.
When we do that, we call Luke Walton the coach of LeBron James, and so on throughout the NBA, Charlton.
Yeah.
So why not, if you're going to put that moniker on a player, Charlton, you don't put that moniker on the coach also?
I agree. So for young African-American men, Martin Luther King did not march so our kids could be referred to as freaks. I think it's highly insulting by ignorant people, but I think it's something more sinister
Well,
that
think
people
about
do.
this, Charlton. When the movie Frankenstein originally came out,
Yeah.
what was he labeled? A
Yep.
freak.
Yeah.
He was labeled a freak. So basically, you call him the black athlete a monster.
Yeah, and I don't like that at all because it's easier to demonize and lock people up when you think about that in your subconscious mind. So James Harden, again, what a feat he's accomplished to do what he's done, 30 points against 29 opposing teams. It's amazing that no one else has done that, and he's still a player that it seems like over the last 3 years, if he's not MVP, he's in the top 2 or 3. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's gotten better and better each year. He has to be considered right now as the front runner for the MVP with what he has done this year, Charlton.
Yeah.
Alone, over 30 consecutive 30-point games, Charlton, keeping his team in the playoff hunt, waiting on the rest of the players to get healthy.
Yep.
And now that they are, Charlton, he has them up in the 3 spot in the West.
Yeah, and I think, he did a lot with Chris Paul being injured also. So that's something, give Harden some credit. He's done a lot better job assisting also and playing a little bit better defense than he did in the past. I want to look at another, big player, that Joel Embiid, and I know they want to label him as something. They don't want to call him a dominant player. They want to give him a nickname too, but they don't call him what they call Zion. Joel Embiid, he came up big last night. He scored, you think about what he did last night. The second time this week, the 76ers, the big man scored 37 points, grabbing 22 rebounds in a 115 overtime win versus the Celtics. And in my opinion, they're the top 4 in the East. It's always going to bounce whatever way the ball bounces, but I think they're at least a solid top 4 team. I don't think they're number 1 yet, but you never know. With performances like that, it's hard to not be number 1. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about that week's rest that Embiid took, Charlton, it has really helped his game out late in the season. He's come out with these 2 back-to-back dominance performances this week, asserting himself, Charlton, against Milwaukee and against Boston.
Yeah.
Teams that you have to go through in the playoffs, Charlton. So if you're establishing yourself now, and Embiid has been a dominant player all year long.
Oh, yeah.
But here late in the season, Charlton, seems like he's getting even better.
Yeah, he's getting better, Big C, and that's when you call players that they're finding their own stride. I know it takes time, a big man. He also has some injuries. Ironically, I was asking you that question earlier about football players, and you said that they would say, hey, we need you, big guy. We probably can't win without you, big guy. And when some guy said, no, I'm not taking that needle, then they've been finding, like, why is this locker room cleaned out? Remember Embiid had the foot issues, but he's a marquee guy. But do you think he even went through some of that pressure, or have things really changed in time, Dixie? Your thoughts?
Well, in the NBA, Charlton, there's no pressure because it's a thing called guaranteed contract.
Yeah.
It's not like football. Guaranteed contract, football, you don't get it.
Yeah.
Baseball, you get it. Basketball, you get it, Charlton. Their money's guaranteed. So when they drafted Embiid, they knew he had health problems, Charlton, and it was called the process. They drafted 3 guys consecutively. They drafted Nerlens Wells, Charlton, who didn't play in his rookie year. He had knee problems. They drafted Embiid, who didn't play in his rookie year. He had knee and foot problems, Charlton. They drafted Ben Simmons in his rookie year. He didn't play because he had a foot problem.
Yeah.
So they trusted the process. Even Markelle Fultz, Charlton, who they just traded to Orlando, did not play in his rookie year. So the Sixers knew that they were going to be drafting guys, Charlton, first overall, but they were going to redshirt them, as they would say in college.
Yeah.
We're going to sit you out this year. We're going to pay you, though. We're going to pay you legally, not like it was in college. You got paid to sit. Okay?
Yeah,
but they trusted the process, Charlton, and they gave those players time enough to get healthy. They didn't rush them in. You think about a lot of young players, Charlton, that are rushed in to perform, and they haven't gotten healthy. The Sixers had a long-term goal for this organization because basketball, Charlton, you want to be good for 5 to 10 years, not 1 to 2 years.
Not 1 to 2 years. And so I love how the big guys play. I want to say sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a college team, or you're a high school, or your mom and papa soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. I want to get on, we talked about Harden, talking about Embiid. There's a lot of dominant players out there in the game. I want to touch on, before we get into tonight's schedule, if you look at the scoring leader, we talked about Harden. He's averaging 36 points a game for Houston. And you look at George, who had a great game last night, but they fell short anyway to Toronto, and he's averaging 28 points. Big C, there's almost a 10-point difference in the scoring leaders in the NBA. Ironically, 35.8, which is 36, and then 28.3. So you got a solid 8-point difference. That's a good 2 or 3 possessions, depending on 2 points or 3 points. They're both all-star players. Why? How is he able to outscore everybody by 8 points, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, his team relies on him more than Oklahoma City relies on Paul George. You got Russell Westbrook there also, Charlton.
Yeah.
But James Harden, everyone has deferred to him in Houston over the last 3 years since he's come aboard and signed that max contract with him, Charlton. But he doesn't let people down. The Beard is just going to shoot until he gets it to go in.
Yeah.
But, he's feared by everybody in the NBA, Charlton. He's a guy that can shoot you in or out of a basketball game.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the 8-point differential, Charlton, that's the difference in scores in the NBA.
Yeah.
That's 3 shots right there, 3 to 4 shot difference right there in a game, Charlton.
Yep.
That the Beard can get you the points and you're not getting them, and that's what has the Rockets right now in the position that they are in the West.
When you look at George, and then behind George you have Curry with Golden State. He's averaging 28 points a game, Steph Curry. Remember also, and again, going back to the football players, North Dallas 40 is a great movie for people to look at the reality of football. The great Nick Nolte. And Curry, remember he had the foot issues? They didn't know if he was going to be a great player when he came out of Davidson. He always had some foot issues, Big C. But because of the way that medicine is now and science and rehabbing, he really haven't had those issues in a long time. But he's able to knock down 28 points a game. In his game, you think about having Durant on that team and Thompson. How is Curry, with all those great shooters, and even adding in Cousins now, how's he still the number 3 scorer in the NBA, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's just a go-to guy. This is a guy of perpetual motion when he's on the court, and he's always looking to get out there on the arc. And when he's hot, Charlton, he's still the best shooter in the NBA.
Yeah.
There's no equal to where he is. If he took as many shots during the game as Harden takes, Charlton,
oh, wow,
he would actually average 40 points a game.
Yeah.
That's how dominant a player that Steph Curry is. But he also understands, Charlton, that he has knocked down teammates, that he does not have to go out there and shoulder that burden every night, Charlton, of being the leading scorer on the team and not giving the team a chance to win.
Yep.
At any point, Charlton, he doesn't mind deferring. When you look at the Warriors, Charlton, you look at the number of players that they've had to be the leading scorers in their game this year.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been Steph Curry. A lot of times he's second and third on the ledger.
Yeah.
But, of their starting lineup, Charlton, I think Draymond Green may be the only player that has not led the team in scoring in a game this year.
Yeah, and I can see why. He can't find the ball in the bucket at times, but he's a good motivational guy and plays good defense. Also, King James. Remember all the talk about King James being the issue in L.A.? He's still the 4th leading scorer in the league. LeBron James averaging 28 points a game. Anyone averaging 28 points a game, being 4th leading scorer of anything in any league, hockey, college ball, pro ball, no one's saying that he's a problem averaging that many points, Big C. And he was hurt for about 4 weeks, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you try to find a reason to knock a guy down all the time. And that's what LeBron's issue has been in Los Angeles, is that he has not been kind to the media, and the media has not been kind to him because he doesn't kowtow to him, Charlton.
No.
He's a grown man, and he speaks as a grown man. He does as he pleases. And they want him to say, well, you need to be humble. Does anybody go to any news broadcaster, Charlton, tell them that they need to be humble when they're on the air? Do they do that? You need to be humble.
Right.
You need to tone it down a little bit when you're out there talking.
Right.
That's not what they're saying, Charlton. So why should James be humble? Why should he cow down to all the media out there, Charlton? The thing about LeBron James, Charlton, what can you find negative about him?
Nothing.
Other than the stories that are created. He hasn't done anything negative in his entire professional career. The only time that there was ever any controversy, Charlton, was when he was in high school and got a new Hummer.
Yeah.
That's the only controversy that ever followed James.
Yeah.
But other than that, Charlton, because he has been so squeaky clean his entire career, Charlton, his entire adult life,
yep,
is that you got to find something to be negative about, and that's him.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. The 5th leading scorer, NBA, Giannis Antetokounmpo, averaging 28 points. Joel Embiid, averaging right about that same mark, 27 points. Durant out of Golden State, averaging 27. I want to get one more thought on this NBA, on these guys who were scoring leaders and etc. When you think about the rebounder, oftentimes you get to score a lot of points because you have guys rebounding. Look at the top rebounders, just pulling up some information. Drummond out of Detroit, he's averaging 15 a game. Seems almost incredible. You're talking almost like, Wilt Chamberlain type numbers. And then Embiid, one of the scoring leaders also, he's averaging 13.6 a game. So he's giving it to you on both ends of the floor. Jordan out of New York, averaging 13. Gobert out of Utah, averaging 13. And then Giannis again, averaging 13 a game, giving it to you offensively and defensively. Any flack over he and King James not suiting up when they play at Big C? Your thoughts?
Oh, Charlton, there was all type of media backlash about that. How can they sit down and not play, and these fans have paid their money?
Yeah.
It's like you're supposed to be like, I guess an NBA player is supposed to be like a plow mule. You go out there and pull the plow in the field regardless of how you feel.
Yeah.
They're going to put the whip to you, and you're going to pull it down the field. and that's what the media thinks of the black athlete in the NBA.
Yeah. I
haven't heard the white media or the black media, any of them, Charlton, say one word about a white athlete sitting down, Charlton.
No.
Not playing in a contest. I have not heard that in the past decade, that a white athlete is sitting out of a game.
Yep.
And they do, Charlton. They miss games all the time. If Dirk Nowitzki doesn't play, it's not media headlines, Charlton,
no.
if he doesn't play.
No.
And any other white player around the league. I mean, when the young kid Luka Doncic has missed a few games this year, it hasn't been a big media thing. Doncic is sitting down, he's
right.
hurt, whatever, getting a rest. They don't talk about that.
Yeah.
But when a black basketball player, Charlton, decides to take a night off, well, how dare him? The audacity of him sitting down, and all of these white people have paid for tickets to come in and watch him play in the arena.
Yeah.
They took little Jimmy out of school. And, this was going to be his big night with his dad, that he was going to get a chance to go to the arena and see this black superstar play, and he decided to sit down. Well, I want my money back because my son is going to be disappointed because he came here just to watch that player and the rest of them sit on the bench.
Well, I know there's a lot of pressure that a lot of men of color, it goes back to the great Jackie Robinson, sometimes just shut up and take it. No, that's not fair. Basically, tonight's not a lot of games tonight in the NBA. Minnesota at Charlotte. Minnesota, maybe a disappointing year. They're already underway. Denver at Washington. Big game for Denver. Could be an upset in the making because Washington still has a sleeper's chance of getting in. And you know, around the White House, sometimes people lie. Was that a foul? Was it not a foul? Or was that a check? Was it not a check? You know what I'm saying in the White House. Utah at Atlanta. Again, Atlanta's a team that can upset people at home. Detroit's at Phoenix. You have Dallas at Sacramento. Dirk Nowitzki. Maybe his last time in Northern California. I want to have your thoughts on the big game of the night. Now, in some people's mind, this is a potential NBA Finals matchup, but Oladipo's out, so probably not. Indiana at Golden State. They came to California on the West Coast swing as a 4-seed, 3-4 seed. Big C, they're dropping like flies. They dropped at Portland. They dropped down at L.A. against the Clippers. And now they have to play the best team, maybe in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors. Your thoughts on the game tonight?
Well, you know, Indiana has played above themselves, Charlton, when they lost to Oladipo, Charlton. They rose in the rankings, but now they're coming back to where they should be. They're back to earth. But the best teams in the East, Charlton, are Milwaukee and Toronto.
Yeah.
You know, you got Philadelphia coming in there, I figure third, and Boston fourth, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you look at Golden State, Charlton, this is a must-win for them. They still have Utah nipping at their heels.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it doesn't make any difference for Golden State, Charlton.
Yeah.
They finished second in the West last year.
Yeah.
But they would like to have that home court advantage throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think they'll knock off Denver. I know they got to play later again this year, but I think someone said even for March Madness, they were asking Gino Auriemma, how do you feel about not being the number one seed? And he said something that's so true. He said, you got to play the best teams to win a championship. Our goal is to win a championship. The seed is not as important as getting to the Final Four. Now, I like his mentality. No wonder they're always there. Big C, so with all the stuff we've talked about, athletes and who leads the NBA in points per game and even rebounds, this talk about the greatest of all time, the stuff on players. Maybe it's all relative, but maybe we should give it a new name as maybe the greatest of their generation, because all time is a long, long time. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that is so true because, I mean, we mentioned that a little bit last night, that nobody was going to Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw saying that they were the greatest of all time versus Tom Brady, Charlton. Well, when you look at the eras of sports, Charlton, they are greatest in their eras. Jim Brown was the greatest player in his era in the entire NFL, Charlton.
Yeah.
He was the greatest, period. I don't care whether you're playing offense, defense, whatever. Terry Bradshaw was the greatest quarterback during his era in the 70s, Charlton, with those multiple Super Bowl wins with the Steelers.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden we forgot about him because Joe Montana came along in his era, Charlton, in the 80s.
Yeah.
Winning all those Super Bowls with the 49ers, catapulting that franchise into stardom, Charlton.
That's right.
So we have to look at all athletes in that perspective. Wilt Chamberlain was the greatest player in his era.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever do what Wilt did in his time, Charlton, in any other era.
Yeah.
But people want to say that Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. So when you think about Bill Russell's 11 championship rings, Charlton, that had nothing to do with it. You know, that had nothing to assimilate greatness, Charlton, when you think about what the Boston Celtics did.
Yeah.
You even look at basketball today. LeBron James is the greatest player of his era in the NBA.
Yeah.
Justice Jordan was the greatest player during his era. Kareem was the most dominant player during his era, Charlton.
Yeah.
So you can't, I mean, there's parallels in time that everybody will look at and say, you know, this guy right now is the most dominant player out there. You look at baseball players. Barry Bonds was the most dominant player in his era playing baseball, regardless of what people want to say about any type of substance.
Yeah.
He was the most dominant player in the game. He changed the face of baseball. He honestly did. And you go out and you look at Willie Mays. He did the same thing during his time. Jackie Robinson was the most dominant player during his era, Charlton, because he transcended race and integrated the game. He did all of those things. So he was the greatest during his era. We look at Gordie Howe in hockey.
That's right.
We look at Wayne Gretzky in hockey. We look at Mario Lemieux in hockey.
Yeah.
We look at Alex Ovechkin now in hockey, Charlton.
Yeah.
All of these players are the greatest player in their era. to sit up and say that one player is greater than another player,
Yeah.
look at what Barry Sanders did running the football, Charlton. He was the greatest running back in his era.
Yeah.
Even though Emmitt Smith is the all-time leading rusher, during that era, Emmitt Smith was the greatest running back.
Yeah.
I mean, not Emmitt Smith, but Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders, yeah.
Barry Sanders, the guy in Los Angeles,
Oh,
the running back, 29.
Dickerson.
Eric Dickerson.
Yeah.
Eric Dickerson had the greatest 4 years in history
Yeah.
as an NFL running back, just under 8,000 yards. So during that era, he was the greatest player, Charlton.
Yeah, and you knew.
So when you
yeah.
go back and you look at all of these things, Dan Marino was the greatest thrower in his era. 5,000-yard seasons in the NFL, nobody had ever done it, Charlton,
Yeah, amazing.
at that time.
Yep.
Drew Brees, you could say, is the greatest passer in his era. Tom Brady is the greatest winner in his era. So there's all type of tangibles when you want to sit up and start comparing athletes. Michael Jordan got his due because he was the greatest player of his era.
Yeah.
Was he the greatest of all time? That's questionable, Charlton, but he was the greatest player in his era.
That's amazing that we look at eras as opposed to all time, because some of the players back in the day, especially offensive linemen, I think Terry Donahue was an offensive lineman in college football. He was about 200 pounds. You can't even play a linebacker at 200 pounds now, Big C. So a lot.
Play defensive back.
Yeah, you can't play defensive back. Sometimes you can't even play kicker if that size and that size.
Janikowski weighed 270.
Yeah, and that's with his clothes. You know, I think that was soaking wet, but he was always, libations. With the libations, without the libations, he's probably 5 pounds lighter, Big C. I mean, everybody has to do what they have to do. Before we get into some March Madness, because you brought up the thing of the Tom Brady and who's the greatest of the era. The Lombardi Trophy, is Vince Lombardi really the greatest coach? We don't know. Al Davis, owner and coach of the Raiders. There are people who say those guys may be the great. Don Shula, Dolphins, and Paul Brown, all those guys.
Well, think about Otto Graham, Charlton.
Yeah.
When they talk about greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah.
No quarterback in the NFL history will repeat what Otto Graham did with the Cleveland Browns, Charlton. Going to the NFC Championship game 10 consecutive years.
Wow.
10 consecutive years and winning 6 of them, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you want to talk about the greatest quarterbacks, I mean, his name has to be in the conversation, Charlton.
Yep. It has to be.
His name has to be in the conversation. That you go to 10 consecutive championship games and you win 6.
Yeah.
So Tom Brady just tied him far as most titles ever won, Charlton, as a quarterback. But Otto Graham's name never comes up in any of these conversations.
Yeah, and when you think about Bob Kraft, he was on target to be called the greatest owner in the history of the NFL universe. But now with what's happened with Bob Kraft, because what you do off the court and off the field, it affects things too. They may put an asterisk by it, but did we not just see what we saw, Big C? Because the NFL commissioner, how will he handle the Kraft plea deal now? That the case is sealed. So the guidelines, you think about it, when Irsay had his issues back in the day with the OxyContin, if the law is saying that what happened, it did not happen because it's sealed, how do you punish a man when the law says your case is sealed, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's the same as with Ezekiel Elliott. The investigator, who was a woman, former police detective, who investigated, said there was no reason for Ezekiel Elliott to be suspended. But he was still suspended
Anyway.
6 games by the league and fined, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this is the same thing with Robert Kraft. There's evidence. He had to admit in this plea deal, Charlton,
Yeah.
that he would have lost in trial, that he would have been convicted based on the evidence.
Yeah.
So he has admitted, based on the evidence, he would have lost the trial, Charlton, and been convicted.
Yeah.
That's what he's admitted to. So the league at least has that evidence, Charlton, his admittance that he would have been lost in trial and been convicted.
Wow.
So the league has to go by that standard, Charlton, which at the least is a 1-year suspension and $1 million fine, Charlton,
Chump
with
change.
no contact with the club, Charlton,
Yeah.
either at the facilities or at the stadium.
Yeah.
That's what the standard is for Roger Goodell. Will Roger Goodell do that? Will he man up and treat Robert Kraft like a black athlete?
Probably not.
I'm not sure, Charlton.
Well, we'll wait to see. We'll hold judgment. We'll see what he does, but we know it's kind of leaning one way. I want to just go around the world. I know Big C Sports is all broadcast all over the world. Week after the massacre in New Zealand that left 50 people dead, and dozens injured. The Parliament passed a bill today. They banned all semi-automatic rifles with the max capacity magazines. We had Stoneman Douglas down in Florida last year, and nothing's happened. But in New Zealand, in less than 1 month, Big C, they actually got a bill passed. Big C, your thoughts?
A week after it happened, Charlton. A week. I mean, you think about the mass shootings. You think about the mass shooting in Las Vegas alone, Charlton.
Yeah.
That left 59 dead, okay? And hundreds wounded.
Yeah.
Hundreds. Down in Las Vegas.
Yep.
With the same type of semi-automatic rifles, Charlton, and max capacity magazines.
Yeah.
That our government did nothing, stood fast, said, well, the man was sick.
Right.
That was the excuse from our administration. Well, he was a sick individual.
Yeah.
Same thing with Stoneman Douglas, Charlton, with 17 students and faculty lost their lives and dozens injured, Charlton.
Yeah.
Well, it was a sick individual. That's our remedy in this country, Charlton, that it's a sick individual that does the shootings, Charlton.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the gun manufacturer. You know, it has nothing to do with a semi-automatic rifle, Charlton, and a clip that will hold 100 rounds of ammunition. It has nothing to do with that. Because if he had a revolver, Charlton, it only held 6 rounds, Charlton.
Yeah.
Then he had to empty that and then reload that manually, Charlton. Would it have made a difference? Could somebody have stopped him, Charlton? Yes, it could have.
Yeah.
So if you eliminate these semi-automatic weapons that are built for war, and these max capacity magazines, Charlton,
Yeah.
that are built for war. This is what wartime military uses, Charlton. You don't go out hunting a pheasant,
No.
a duck, a goose, a deer, anything, Charlton, with a max capacity semi-automatic rifle, Charlton.
No, you don't.
You don't. You only hunt people with those. And I praise the Prime Minister of New Zealand,
Yeah.
who is a woman, by the way,
Yep.
who cares about life. When you have a woman in charge, a woman cares about life because she has nurtured every man on this earth, Charlton.
Ain't that the truth?
Every man that's a politician on this earth that are making all the negative decisions have been nurtured by a woman, and they forgot what these women have taught them, Charlton.
Yeah.
And the Prime Minister of New Zealand is a woman. She's a new mother, Charlton. She has a child that's less than 2 years old.
Yeah.
And she's thinking about her child's future and the rest of the children's future in her country, Charlton. Our administration don't give a damn about the layman American citizen. It's about how can I enrich my pockets from my constituents and my coffers.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing from their lobbyists. They don't care about the American citizen, Charlton, because every time there's a mass shooting in America, Charlton,
Yeah.
they say, well, we need to study this.
Yeah.
We need to, what do you need to study? Why don't you start attending the funerals? That's what you need to study.
Or at least go and talk to her and have her give an example on how they did it instead of going over hanging out with Putin. Big C, I want to close out tonight. I know we have March Madness. It's you know, I look at it 2 ways. I don't like the free labor and the exploitation of young kids, especially young black boys. Since integration of college athletics, Big C, we have programs that have gone to make billions of dollars with their athletic budgets now, and simply because they integrated these schools, not because they had a come to Jesus moment and try to treat people fair. It's because they got a lot of black athletes in and utilized them and took their talents to make their teams win. I look at Florida State with a win over Vermont. It was 76-69. Maryland got a win over Belmont. That was a close game, 79-77. Auburn over New Mexico State, 78-77. Michigan State, 76-65 over Bradley. Kansas is a team that a lot of people don't overlook. Kansas, that's Dorothy and Wizard of Oz territory, over Northwestern, 87-53. And then Murray State with a win over Marquette, which was a shock to a lot of people. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, John Morant, Charlton, is if it was not for Zion Williamson, would be the most exciting player in college basketball.
He's good.
This guy will be a top 5 pick, Charlton. He is a scoring guard. He's a lot like an athletic Steph Curry. The guy has no filters on him, Charlton. He can shoot from anywhere, great athleticism, and great leadership. And this is what 4 years of college will do for you, Charlton.
Yeah, it really helps him to mature as a grown man. Big C, we won't give a lot of scores because we want people to have the chance to go out and see things too. But Florida was up over Nevada at halftime, and in the second half they were up 48-30 in a game that I thought Nevada would win. Also, Kentucky beating up on Abilene Christian, 39-13. They were doing that at halftime. Gonzaga a lot of people's favorite to get to Final Four. They were over Fairleigh Dickinson at 53-17 at halftime. And the surprise score came out of the St. Mary's of California versus Villanova game. That was tied at 25. Early in the first, there's a lot of games to be played and finished off. But give me your thoughts. If St. Mary's had knocked off Gonzaga in their conference championship, could you imagine if they were able to knock off Villanova? This is the team, St. Mary's, last year that should have gotten in, and they were kept out of the tournament. If they come in and knock off Villanova, that would be maybe the bigger upset. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's even bigger upsets, but St. Mary's is a team that knows how to play great defense and slow a team down. You think about that win that they had in the conference tournament against Gonzaga, Charlton.
Yeah.
They had a 49-point swing from the game that they had lost previously to the game that they had won. It was a 49-point difference. So they learned how to play defense, Charlton, as the season progressed on, and they've rolled in the tournament on a hot ticket, Charlton, playing great defense.
Big C, I want to finish up on a note back in the past. The great Steph Curry, during 2008 season, he dropped 40 points on Gonzaga. You think about that. 30 of those points came in the second half, and Davidson beat Gonzaga back in 2008, 82-76. Amazing. That was a preview of what he's become today. And I'm excited about March Madness. I love seeing young men compete. I want to see people eradicate the word calling black men freaks because his parents gave him a name, Big C, back in the day. There was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, it's always great to be in this time of the year when it comes to basketball, and you see all these young men that are so hyped and excited about playing in the tournament. I wish that the NCAA would get it more right, Charlton, in regionalizing competition. Instead of flying young men all the way across the country, you look at St. Mary's, Charlton. Look at where they're playing in the Eastern region, Charlton. They've gone all the way from California out east. How many people can travel from California, Charlton, to that Eastern regional bracket to see St. Mary's play tonight?
Yeah, that's a very good truth. And I know airplane tickets are not free, but speaking of free, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuses for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. As we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.